long before civilization, before language had rules, before humans even understood the world around them. A decision was made. This wasn't a choice made by one person, or in a single moment. It was a gradual shift, a collective agreement whispered on the wind, but it changed everything. Picture this: a world without maps, without laws, without any certainty about tomorrow. Early humans wandered a land that was both their home and their greatest adversary. Every day was a fight for survival. Every sunset brought the threat of the unknown, and every night carried the real danger of not seeing the dawn. Survival wasn't a given. It was earned minute by minute. Nature, in its raw and unfiltered power, offered no mercy. For millennia our ancestors lived purely on instinct. They reacted to the world around them, driven by fear, hunger, and the basic impulse to stay alive. A rustle in the grass meant danger. The scent of rain meant a storm was coming. Life was a series of automatic responses. But then, something incredible happened. At some point, lost to the depths of prehistory, humans stopped just reacting. They started choosing. They chose to stay together instead of scattering to face the darkness alone. They chose to stand their ground and protect the vulnerable instead of fleeing at the first sign of trouble. They chose to act with purpose, to plan, to anticipate, instead of simply waiting for fate to decide for them. This wasn't a smart decision by our modern standards. It wasn't calculated with spreadsheets or debated in a council. It was risky. Staying together meant sharing scarce resources. Protecting others meant putting your own life on the line. It was dangerous, illogical even. But it was necessary. It was the spark that ignited the flame of humanity. That fundamental choice to cooperate, to trust, to form a bond stronger than blood, is the bedrock of everything we are today. It sculpted our brains, shaped our societies, and defined our very essence. This decision set humans on a path that no other species on Earth has ever taken. It was the moment our ancestors looked at the chaos of the world and decided to create order, together. So, what was this first choice? Really? It wasn't a single event, but a turning point in our cognitive evolution. It was the moment instinct met intention. It was the birth of strategy, of community, of us. Think about it. When you work with a team, when you help a stranger, when you plan for your future, you are echoing that ancient decision. You are tapping into a legacy that began hundreds of thousands of years ago, with a small group of hominids who decided their chances were better together. They gambled on each other, and that gamble paid off in the most spectacular way imaginable. It gave us language, art, science, and the world we live in now. Every major leap forward in our history can be traced back to this initial commitment to shared action and collective responsibility. To truly understand who we are today, why we build cities, why we create laws, why we yearn for connection, we must journey back to that pivotal moment. We need to explore that dawn of consciousness when our ancestors decided not to be passive subjects of nature, but active agents of their own destiny. They chose community over isolation, courage over fear, and hope over despair. Because once that decision was made, once we chose to be human, together, there was no going back. Join us as we uncover the story of the most important choice ever made. The first topic of discussion is life before choice. Imagine a world without plans, without tomorrow, without even the idea of a choice. This was the world of our earliest ancestors. Before we became thinkers, we were reactors. Life wasn't guided by beliefs or long-term goals. It was a raw, unfiltered existence, ruled entirely by instinct. Picture this: a gnawing feeling in your stomach. It's not called hunger, it's just a signal. And the signal means one thing: move. You don't decide to hunt. Your body simply propels you forward, senses on high alert for anything edible. A sudden shadow overhead, a snap of a twig in the distance. It's not analyzed as a potential threat. It's just pure, unadulterated fear. The only response? Run, hide, survive. In this ancient world, the concept of tomorrow was a luxury that didn't exist. There was only the now, the immediate, overwhelming present moment. The world was a canvas of constant danger. Predators lurked in the tall grass, their eyes reflecting the same primal drive as your own. The sky could turn from brilliant blue to a raging storm without warning, a reminder of nature's indifference. The patch of berries you relied on yesterday could be gone today, stripped bare by other creatures or a sudden frost. Death was not a philosophical concept. It was a constant companion. Life was fragile, a flickering flame and a relentless wind. Early humans moved through this landscape, much like other animals. They were part of the ecosystem, not masters of it. They followed the herds. They tracked the scent of water. They fled from things bigger and faster than them. They responded, they reacted, but they did not plan. For a time, instinct was enough. It was a powerful, hardwired survival mechanism. It kept you alive from one moment to the next. But instinct has its limits. Instinct can't tell you to store food for a winter that's still months away. It can't prepare you for the recurring floods that wash away your shelter every spring. It can't help you understand the patterns of the stars or the cycles of the moon. Instinct is a phenomenal crisis manager, but it's a terrible strategist. It only kicks in when danger is already at your doorstep. This made life for early humans incredibly unstable. One successful hunt, a bellyful, and a moment of peace could be followed by days of gnawing starvation. A cave that felt like a fortress could be invaded by a predator or flooded overnight. The strongest member of your small group, the best hunter, could be taken by a sudden illness or a simple fall, leaving everyone else vulnerable. Life before choice was life without control. We didn't shape our environment. We were utterly and completely shaped by it. We were like driftwood on a powerful river, pushed and pulled by currents we couldn't comprehend, let alone influence. Social structures were basic, born of necessity. Groups were small, likely, family-based. Bonds of kinship certainly existed, but when faced with immediate, life-threatening danger, instinct often overrode everything else. The primal urge to survive is profoundly selfish. It might tell you to run, even if it means leaving someone behind. There was no concept of morality as we know it. No framework of right or wrong. There was only one rule: stay alive. But over thousands upon thousands of years, something began to shift. As humans survived, as generations lived and died, a new capacity started to flicker into existence. Memory. Not just the memory of a specific danger, but the memory of patterns. They started to notice things. The same strange birds appeared just before the rains came. The great beasts always moved south when the air grew cold. Certain plants that made you sick always grew near a particular type of rock. Fire, once a terrifying force of destruction, could also provide warmth and keep predators at bay. This growing awareness was the seed of something revolutionary. It planted a question in the developing human mind, a question they could yet form into words, but could feel in their bones. What if just reacting isn't enough? They began to connect cause and effect in a new way. If we follow those birds, we might find water. If we gather these nuts now, we will have food when the snow comes. If we stay away from that plant, we won't get sick. These weren't just reactions anymore. These were the first tentative steps towards prediction, towards foresight. Life before choice was a chaotic, fragile dance on the edge of extinction. But slowly, painstakingly, our ancestors began to feel that something more was needed. It wasn't about being stronger or faster. The world was already full of creatures that were much stronger and faster. The new tool, the game-changing advantage, was awareness. It was the ability to see not just what is, but what could be. This dawning consciousness was the bridge from the old world to the new. It was a moment we began to climb out of the river of instinct and stand on the bank, looking at the currents, understanding their flow, and for the very first time, contemplating where we wanted to go. That awareness would soon transform raw instinct into something far more powerful, something that would eventually allow us to reshape the entire planet. The power of choice. And it's a power we inherited. Every decision you make today, from the smallest to the largest, is a legacy of that ancient shift from reaction to reflection. It's a testament to those ancestors who first looked at the world and thought, maybe there's another way. The second topic of discussion is a world by instinct. Imagine a world ruled by pure, raw instinct. For early humans, this wasn't a philosophical concept. It was their reality. Instinct was the invisible hand that guided every action. It was a brutal, efficient master. When you're afraid, you run. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're threatened, you fight. These responses are lightning fast, automatic, and require absolutely no conscious thought. For a very long time, this system was perfect. It kept our ancestors alive in a world full of immediate dangers. See a saber-toothed cat? Instinct screams run, and your legs are already moving. You don't pause to admire its teeth. You just survive. But here's where the story gets complicated. The world our ancestors inhabited was unusually complex. It wasn't a simple, predictable environment. The threats they faced were constantly changing. The food sources they relied on were erratic and unpredictable. The challenges were relentless. Instinct was great at responding to a threat right here, right now, but it couldn't adapt fast enough to the bigger picture. When a predator attacked, Instinct helped the lucky ones escape. But what happened when those predators started learning? When they began to anticipate human behavior? Suddenly, the old, reliable instinct wasn't so reliable anymore. It became a liability. When a drought withered the land and food vanished, instinct told humans to search. But it offered no guidance on where to go, or how long to search. It couldn't solve the same problem from happening again next year. This created immense pressure. Small groups of humans found themselves trapped in a terrifying loop, facing the same dangers over and over. Devastating floods, brutal winters, cunning predators, and hostile rival groups. Each time disaster struck, simply reacting wasn't enough to guarantee survival. It was a numbers game, and the house always seemed to win. To break the cycle, survival demanded something entirely new, and it arrived in the form of a tiny, revolutionary act. The pause. Immagine Italiano. Instead of running immediately at the first sign of danger, some humans waited. They watched. Instead of scattering blindly into the wilderness, they held their ground for a moment. Instead of each individual reacting on their own, they stayed together, observing as a group. This pause, this momentary hesitation, was the tiny crack in the armor of instinct through which the light of consciousness began to shine. This was the dawn of thought. A world governed purely by instinct has no long-term memory. It lives only in the present moment. But with this pause, humans started to change that fundamental rule. They began to remember. They remembered the path the predator took last time. They remembered which berries made them sick and which ones were safe. They remembered the sting of failure and the relief of success. Memory became a powerful new weapon, and it began to weaken instinct's absolute control. For the first time, humans started to resist their immediate, powerful urges. The gnawing pain of hunger didn't always mean they had to move immediately. The heart-pounding terror of fear didn't always mean they had to flee. They were learning a crucial lesson. Sometimes, staying put was a safer option. Sometimes, waiting for the right moment to fight back was more effective than a panicked, immediate response. Think about one of the most basic survival instincts. When threatened, scatter every individual for themselves. It makes sense, right? A predator can only catch one, but experience, the painful teacher, was whispering a different strategy. Experience taught them that standing together, presenting a united and formidable front, could deter a threat that would have easily picked them off one by one. This created a profound internal conflict, a tension that simmered inside the human mind. The body, wired for millions of years of instinct, screamed react, but the emerging mind, armed with memory and observation, whispered, choose. This tension became the engine of our evil. The groups that continued to rely solely on instinct suffered repeated, devastating losses. They were predictable, and in a dangerous world, predictability is a death sentence. But the groups that learned, that waited, that coordinated their actions, began to survive more often. Their success wasn't guaranteed, but their odds improved with every lesson learned. Slowly, painstakingly, instinct was demoted. It was no longer the absolute ruler of the human mind. It became an advisor, a powerful guide, but not an unquestionable command. Its voice was still the loudest, but it was no longer the only one. Humans were no longer just reacting to the world around them. They were beginning to interpret it. This shift was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was incredibly powerful. It didn't happen overnight, or even in a single generation. It was a slow, agonizing process, forged in the fires of countless mistakes and tragic losses. But once humans learned that instinct could be questioned, that its commands could be defied, something irreversible happened. They had crossed a mental Rubicon. The world was no longer something that just happened to them, a series of events to be endured. It was becoming something they could analyze, understand, and respond to with intention. This was the moment just before true choice. It was the quiet space created by that first pause. A space where possibilities could be weighed and decisions could be made. And once the concept of choice fully blossomed, humanity and the world itself would never be the same again. This transition from instinct to thought is perhaps the most important story in our history, because it's the story of how we became us. It's the origin story of our ability to plan, to create, to cooperate, and to dream of a different future. The third topic of discussion is the moment humans chose. The very first human decision wasn't loud. It wasn't a proclamation from a tribal leader or a vote cast around a fire. There was no single, dramatic moment that changed our destiny. Instead, it arrived quietly, subtly, in the form of hesitation. For millions of years, our ancestors had reacted to danger in the same predictable ways. run, hide, scatter, an instinctual, immediate response hardwired into their very being. If a predator appeared, you fled. If a loud noise startled you, you froze. It was simple, effective, and it kept the species alive. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. In certain moments of crisis, a group of early humans didn't immediately bolt. They paused. They watched. They waited. This pause, this tiny sliver of time between stimulus and response, was the most revolutionary act in the history of life on Earth. It was a birth of conscious choice. It signified that raw, animal instinct was no longer the absolute ruler of human behavior. Imagine a scene. A pack of cave lions appears on the horizon. The old response would be instant panic, every individual for themselves. But now, some groups don't scatter. They instinctively pull closer together, their eyes fixed on the threat, their minds racing when a violent storm rolls in. Instead of blindly wandering into the unknown dangers of the tempest, some huddle in their shelter, remembering the relative safety of waiting it out when the usual berry patch is empty, instead of aimless foraging. Some recall another patch they saw weeks ago, over the next ridge. This was the dawn of a new kind of survival. This ability to choose isn't just a matter of intelligence. Many animals are incredibly smart, but choice is something different. It's about resisting impulse. Humans began to do something no other species could do with such consistency. They delayed their reaction. That delay, that hesitation, created a space. And in that space, thinking could happen. Thinking allowed for comparison. Comparison allowed for learning, and learning allowed for genuine decisions. The fundamental question our ancestors asked themselves began to change. They stopped just asking, "What is happening to me right now?" and started asking, "What usually happens next?" This seemingly simple shift in perspective changed everything. The groups that could remember past events, that could recognize patterns in the world around them, began to survive more often. They started choosing safer paths down the mountain. They avoided the river bend, where predators frequently hunted. They acted with intention rather than pure, unthinking panic. This created a profound divide within the human species. It wasn't a divide between the strong and the weak, or the fast and the slow. It was a divide between the reactive and the deliberate. The reactive groups continued to be ruled by instinct, scattering at the first sign of trouble. But the deliberate groups began to coordinate. They waited for each other before crossing a dangerous plain. They formed protective circles around their injured members instead of leaving them behind. They learned when to stand their ground and defend their territory, especially when fleeing would mean certain death for the vulnerable. Of course, these choices were incredibly risky. Hesitation could be fatal. Sometimes, staying together just made the group a bigger, more tempting target for predators. Sometimes, waiting for a storm to pass meant missing a crucial opportunity to find food. There were countless failures, countless moments where a split-second instinctual reaction would have been the better option. But over thousands of generations, the math began to favor deliberation. On average, deliberate choice proved more effective for long-term survival than blind, chaotic reaction. Nature, in its slow and methodical way, rewarded this shift. The groups that chose more wisely survived just a little bit more often. Their children, who learned these new behaviors through observation and imitation, carried those strategies forward. Generation after generation, the capacity for choice became more ingrained, woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human. It's crucial to understand that this initial decision to choose wasn't a moral one. It wasn't about being good or bad. It was purely practical. The old way, the purely reactive way, was starting to fail as the environment grew more complex and social structures evolved. Humans started choosing because they had to. This new ability also fundamentally changed our relationships with each other. When your survival depends not just on your own instincts, but on the collective decision of your group, trust becomes essential. You have to trust that the person next to you will hold the line. You have to trust that the elder who points the way knows the path. Shared experiences of surviving danger together, not as scattered individuals, but as a cohesive unit, forged incredibly powerful bonds. For the first time, humans truly began to act as a single, coordinated organism. And once humans started choosing together, a new concept was born, a collective identity. The idea of we became more important than the idea of me. With that shared identity came a sense of shared responsibility. People stayed to protect others, not just out of love, but out of a pragmatic understanding that the group's survival was their own. They defended resources for the collective. They remembered and passed down stories of danger, not just for their own benefit, but for the safety of generations to come. This was the moment humanity stepped beyond the absolute reign of instinct. Instinct never disappeared, of course. It's still with us today, in our gut feelings and our fight-or-flight responses. But it was no longer the only voice in the room. A new power, the power of choice, had entered the human story, and that changed everything. Because once a species learns that it can choose a different path, that it doesn't have to obey its immediate impulses, its future becomes wonderfully and terrifyingly unpredictable. That unpredictability would soon demand a new quality from us: courage. Because with the power of choice comes an inevitable companion: the fear of choosing wrong. Every decision carries weight, the possibility of failure, the burden of consequence. The ancient hesitation that gave birth to our intellect also gave birth to our anxiety. It's a package deal, and as human society grew more complex, the choices became harder, the stakes became higher, and the need for courage grew ever stronger. The story of humanity is, in many ways, the story of us learning to live with the power and the terror of that very first choice. The fourth topic of discussion is risk, fear, and survival choice. Have you ever wondered what makes us human? Is it our tools, our language, our art, or is it something deeper, something that began long before all of that? Let's travel back in time to a world where our ancestors faced a new, terrifying power, the power of choice. Before choice, life was simpler, governed purely by instinct. See danger, react, survive. But the moment our ancestors started to choose, everything changed. Life didn't get easier, it became infinitely more dangerous. Every decision was a gamble with life and death. Stay here and risk being found by predators, or move and risk starving in an unknown land. Fight and risk being wiped out, or flee and risk losing everything. This new reality introduced a profound kind of fear. It wasn't just the immediate, physical fear of a snarling beast. It was a mental fear, an anxiety about the future, about the consequences of a wrong decision. This fear was the shadow of choice. Every option carried a heavy weight, because a single bad choice could mean the end, not just for one individual, but for the entire group. This is where the concept of risk was born. Risk is the price we pay for having a choice. Every decision, from who to trust to when to hunt, became a calculated risk. And surprisingly, our ancestors accepted it. They had to. Why? Because simply avoiding all risk was a slow-motion death sentence. Imagine two early human groups. One group is ruled by fear. They never venture far from their cave, never challenge a competing group for resources, never try a new type of food. They play it safe, always. The other group is different. They are afraid, yes, but they don't let fear make their decisions. They take calculated risks. They send out scouts. They test new hunting grounds. They learn from their mistakes, even when those mistakes are costly. Which group do you think survived? The one paralyzed by fear slowly dwindled, outcompeted, and unable to adapt. The one that managed its fear, that took risks, was the one that learned, grew, and ultimately thrived. They learned to accept loss in exchange for invaluable knowledge. They discovered which berries were poisonous, which hunting strategies worked, and which territories were worth defending. This is the true origin of courage. Not the fearless heroism we see in movies, but the quiet courage to act in the face of crippling uncertainty. The courage to choose to protect the vulnerable when your own survival instinct screams at you to run. The courage to stay calm and plan when panic is the easier, faster response. Fear never went away. It couldn't. It was essential. Fear was the alarm system that kept them alive. The crucial shift was that fear became an advisor, not a dictator. Our ancestors learned to listen to their fear, to respect the information it provided, but then to make a conscious choice. They learned to live with it. This dynamic balance between fear and choice transformed human survival. It fueled exploration. It was this willingness to take risks that pushed humans out of familiar lands, across treacherous oceans, and into harsh, freezing climates. Instinct would have kept them put. Choice, guided by courage, pushed them forward. This new way of thinking also reshaped social structures. Who became the leader in this new world? It wasn't always the strongest or the fastest. It was the one who could remain calm when everyone else was panicking. The one who could weigh the risks and make a sound decision under pressure. Leadership was born from risk management. Experience became the new currency of authority. The elders, the ones who remembered past dangers and the outcomes of past choices, became invaluable. Their wisdom guided the group. Don't go near the river at dusk. That's when the big cats hunt. Remember the last time we tried to cross the mountain in the wet season? This wasn't a formal government. It was a survival pattern born from shared memory and collective risk assessment. Choice began to turn the chaos of survival into a structured, learnable system. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe, but it was survivable. And most importantly, it was adaptable. This is the key. While a lion is incredibly strong and a gazelle is incredibly fast, their behaviors are largely fixed. Humans, by learning to manage fear and choose their risks, gained the ultimate survival tool. Adaptability, the ability to change strategy, to learn from failure, and to invent new solutions to new problems. Adaptability is, in the long run, much more powerful than pure physical strength. This ability to weigh risk, manage fear, and act deliberately is the foundation of everything that came after. It's the root of cooperation, because trusting others is a huge risk. It's the root of conflict, as groups made choices that put them at odds. It's the root of law and society, which are essentially large-scale systems for managing risk and collective choice. So, the next time you feel fear or anxiety when facing a big decision, remember where that feeling comes from. It's an ancient echo of a time when the wrong choice could mean the end. But also remember that the ability to choose, even when you're afraid, is what defines our species. That first conscious decision made by an early human wasn't just one choice. It was the beginning of a billion choices, an unbroken chain leading directly to you, right here, right now. It's the very thing that makes us human. The fifth topic of discussion is memory became power. We often talk about what makes humans special. Is it our tools? Is it our language? Is it our complex societies? All of these are true, but they are symptoms of something much deeper. Something that emerged quietly in our ancient past and changed the course of our evolution forever. It's a force more powerful than fear, more decisive than choice. It's memory. Think about it. Fear teaches caution. Adiastatos, at a snapping twig and flees. It learns to be cautious in that moment. Choice allows us to control our immediate actions. But memory is different. It's the ability to hold on to an experience, to learn from it, and to pass that learning on. For most animals, memory of danger is fleeting. The immediate threat passes, and the memory fades. But early humans started doing something revolutionary. They began to remember collectively. A flood devastated a valley once, and humans remembered the telltale signs of rising water. A cunning predator attacked from a specific ridge, and humans remembered to avoid that location. A brutal winter claimed many lives, and humans remembered the seasonal timing, learning to prepare. Suddenly, memory wasn't just an individual's tool for survival. It became shared. This single shift changed everything. It was the birth of a new kind of power. Before we even had complex language, stories were being told, not with words, but with actions. Certain places were silently avoided by the entire group. Certain paths through the forest were chosen over others. Certain ways of finding food or building shelter were meticulously copied by the young. Children learned without needing a spoken explanation. They simply watched, absorbed, and repeated. Memory was passed down through observation. This created the first traditions. It wasn't culture as we know it yet, but it was the beginning of patterns of behavior that could outlive any single individual. These shared memories gave early humans a tremendous advantage, one that nature itself couldn't have predicted. Nature works in cycles, often repetitive ones. By remembering these cycles, humans learned to be prepared, and preparedness is a form of power. Groups that remembered were the groups that survived. They recognized the early warnings of a coming storm, a drought, or a migration. They adjusted their behavior before disaster fully arrived. This proactive approach separated humans from nearly every other species on the planet. Instead of just reacting to catastrophe, we began to anticipate it. We moved from being passive subjects of nature to active participants in our own survival. This evolution of memory also completely reshaped cooperation. Before, if one person discovered a new danger or a new resource, that knowledge often died with them. But with shared memory, one person's experience benefited the entire group. Knowledge was no longer a private asset. It became communal property. This drastically reduced the number of repeated mistakes. When you're living on the edge of survival, fewer mistakes mean more of your people live to see another day. A single lesson, learned once, could save generations. And from this communal knowledge, the concept of teaching began to emerge. Not formal schooling, of course, but guidance. The older members of the group, those with the largest repository of memories, became incredibly valuable. Their actions were watched more closely. Their remembered experiences shaped the group's most critical decisions: where to hunt, when to move, how to deal with a neighboring tribe. Elders were revered not for their physical strength, which faded with age, but for the wisdom they carried. Wisdom itself became a primary tool for survival. But memory did more than just make us smarter and safer. It deepened our emotional bonds. The pain of loss was remembered, honoring those who were gone. The joy of a successful hunt was remembered, reinforcing cooperation. The sacrifice of one member for the good of the group was remembered, creating a powerful narrative of loyalty. These shared emotional memories strengthened group identity. Humans didn't just survive together, they remembered together. This collective consciousness created a profound sense of belonging and loyalty. Loyalty reduced the chances of individuals abandoning the group during hard times, and a group that stayed united, even in the face of incredible hardship, had much higher odds of survival. However, this incredible new power came with a cost. Memory made humans aware of the passage of time in a way no other creature was. We began to understand that today's choices would directly affect tomorrow's reality. That profound realization introduced something new into the human psyche, but it also introduced responsibility. Once humans could remember the past and anticipate the future, they could no longer live purely in the present moment. We became self-aware beings, burdened and blessed by our own consciousness. And that awareness, born from memory, changed the game entirely. Because once a species understands cause and effect across time, once it can learn from its history and plan for its future, it stops just surviving. It begins to shape its own destiny. Memory turns scattered, reactive creatures into methodical planners. And planners don't just endure the forces of nature, they challenge them. They build dams to control floods. They cultivate crops to survive winters. They create societies to manage complexity. It all started with that quiet revolution in our minds. The ability to hold on to a moment, learn from it, and share it. The power of memory is the foundation upon which all of human civilization is built. The sixth topic of discussion is the chain that changed humanity. Let's talk about a single moment that changed everything for humanity. It wasn't a meteor strike or a continental shift. It was a choice. The very first time a human ancestor stopped, hesitated, and decided what to do next, instead of just reacting. That pause, that simple act of choosing, sparked a chain reaction that forged the world we live in today. Think about it. The first choice wasn't just a single event. It was the start of a cascade. Choice introduced risk. Should I cross this river? Should I hunt that large animal? Answering these questions meant you had to weigh the odds. And to do that, you needed memory. Last time, the current was too strong here. Last time, an animal like that fought back. Memory became a survival tool, more powerful than claws or fangs. And once you have memory, you can start planning. If I wait until the dry season, the river will be lower. If we hunt together, we have a better chance. Planning began to reshape behavior. Humans weren't just living day to day, moment to moment anymore. They were thinking ahead. They were strategizing. This fundamental shift allowed our ancestors to adapt at a speed never before seen in nature. Other species adapt biologically over millions of years. A polar bear grows thicker fur. A giraffe develops a longer neck. These are slow, generational changes written in DNA. But humans, we started adapting within a single lifetime. We learned, we remembered, we passed those lessons on. We weren't just inheriting genes. We were inheriting knowledge. A cultural DNA that evolved exponentially faster than our biology. This incredible speed is what set us on a completely different trajectory from every other creature on Earth. With this new power of rapid adaptation, humans began to shape their environments instead of just submitting to them. We didn't just find shelter, we built it. We didn't just run from the cold. We learned to control fire, bringing warmth and light into the darkness. We started altering landscapes for agriculture, channeling water for irrigation, and influencing entire ecosystems to suit our needs. Now, this wasn't about dominance, not yet. In the beginning, it was all about survival. It was about extending our reach, pushing back against the harsh realities of nature. But the foundation for our future was being laid with every controlled burn, with every planted seed. The moment we chose instead of just reacted, we stepped onto a new, more powerful, and far more dangerous path. This power of choice came with a heavy burden. Responsibility. For the first time, a species could consciously choose wrongly. We could make mistakes with catastrophic consequences. We could overhunt a species into extinction. We could exhaust the resources of a forest. We could turn our new cooperative hunting skills against each other, leading to organized conflict. The very same cognitive ability that saved us from predators also made us the most dangerous predator of all. This is the central paradox of being human. The ability that has brought us to the brink of self-destruction is the very same ability that has carried us forward through ice ages, famines, and plagues. It's the source of our greatest triumphs and our most devastating failures. Civilization, art, science, and philosophy, all of it traces back to that first moment of hesitation. That pause, that choice. When our ancestors stopped acting purely on instinct, they became something entirely new. Not gods, not masters of the universe, but something perhaps even more profound. They became dissident. And once a species learns to decide, once it gains agency, history itself begins. Before choice, there is only nature. After choice, there is a story. The first human decision didn't build a city. It didn't invent a tool or create a language. It did something far more fundamental. It created agency, the capacity to act independently and make our own free choices. And that agency is the seed from which everything we call humanity grew. Our cities, our technologies, our cultures, our conflicts today are all downstream from that initial spark of conscious decision. So, when we look back at the grand story of humanity, we see it's not a tale written by physical strength or speed alone. It's a story written by choices made under pressure, guided by the memories of our ancestors, and carried forward through connection and cooperation. That is why we survived. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the fastest, but because we were the ones who learned to pause, to think, and to choose. And in a world filled with endless distractions and instincts pulling us in every direction, remembering the power of that simple, deliberate choice might be the most important lesson of all. Thanks for watching. If this idea sparked something in you, consider subscribing for more journeys into what makes us human. See you next time.